Okay, this is a talk I'm going to give on a particularly interesting case study, and it's entitled Pinpointing the McGowan Paternal Ancestral Genetic Homeland to within a single Irish townland, which is approximately 1 kilometre squared. So just a bit of background on who I am for those of you who are not familiar with me. I'm a scientist by training. I initially started with a technician's diploma in applied science, Kevin Street in Dublin. I then moved on to an honours degree, first class in biotechnology from the University of West of Scotland, and a Ph.D. in autoimmune neuropathies from Glasgow Caledonian University. I was then a postdoc in the University of Dundee and did my second postdoc, and was later a senior scientist at the University of Galway. And I started Irish Origins back in 2010. Now, I am not affiliated with any DNA testing company or university, and this is a professional service. And after watching this video, if you want me to review or examine a particular set of DNA results, you can drop me an email, tyronebowes@gmail.com, or if you want to find out about a suitable commercial ancestral DNA test, then drop me an email. I never charge for examining DNA results, and I don't charge for advising where to test. Okay, so I'm going to put this in context. So a lady contacted me after watching my talk entitled "The Origin of the Gael as Revealed by Their DNA," and she was wondering if she was related to Brenda McGowan, whose Y-DNA features in that talk. Now, Brendan shared the same RM222 haplogroup as her male McGowan relative. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, the Y-DNA test only explores the male Y chromosome, which is only passed from father to son through the generations. Here's the problem. There are at least 6 unrelated clans, 5 Irish, 1 Scottish. They're associated with areas of Ireland and Scotland where that RM22 marker predominates in the population. And I'm going to number them here. So you can see here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters there. You can see of McGowans in this RM22 area of Ireland, which is in the north and west. And if you look at Scotland, you can see 1 McGowan clan down there in the southwest, in that area where you find RM222. Now, you look at these images and you'll see other variants of McGowan. You see Cowan, and you see Gowan in Ireland. And if you look in Scotland, you find McCowan and also Gowans. And I've put Smith there because Smith is literally the English translation of the McGowan surname. And in some of these instances in both Ireland and Scotland, you will see that you find Cowan and McGowan, or McGowan and Smith in the same area. Now this lady, her male relative, we're going to call him T. McGowan, and he has the results of a commercial ancestral Y-DNA 37 marker test. So that's pretty basic. That's literally the basic or the starter kit for doing the Y-DNA test. It's the Y-DNA 37. So what you see here is a snapshot of T. McGowan's Y-DNA 37 results. And if now you're not seeing all of them, this is just the individuals he matches closest. But if you look down here, you see yes, he shares that RM222 marker with Brenda McGowan from the talk. And if you look to the left, you see all the names of the males who have also Y-DNA tested, with whom T. McGowan shares a common male ancestor. And yes, T. McGowan is also matching others named McGowan. And so we can summarize and say that yes, T. McGowan carries that RM222 mutation, and he matches others named McGowan. So potentially he is a match. Potentially he is a match to Brendan from that talk. So the fact that T. McGowan matches other McGowan males who tested independently means that he is related to one of these 6 clans, or McGowan clans, that we find in areas associated with that RM222 marker. But is he related to Brendan, who featured in the talk? That's the question. So if we look back at T. McGowan's Y-DNA 37 marker matches, you'll see that they are not random, okay? If you look here, if I highlight them all according to nationality, you see that Irish surnames dominate in closeness. And what you'll also see is that there's the other McGowan, but some of those Irish surnames, like Flanagan with the red arrows and Clancy, they recur among his surname matches. So Irish surnames dominate, and individuals with Irish earliest recorded locations in Ireland dominate. And that means that Mr. T. McGowan is descended from an Irish McGowan clan. So some of those surnames recur among T. McGowan's closest matches. And here I've just summarized all of those surnames that dominate or recur at the 37 marker level. Now each surname appears at the point at which it first is seen as a Y-DNA match. So for example here, Clancy, it appears at a genetic distance of 1. So the first Clancy to appear as a match shares 6 of 37 Y-DNA markers. But in brackets are the number of males with each surname who appear as a match at the 37 marker level. And you can see here there are 6 Clancys to appear as a match. There are 4 Flanagans and 2 Mullins. Now, what's important here is that Clancy, Flanagan, Mullins, they appear as the test subject's closest Irish associated surname matches. Now in this instance, Mullins can be either Scottish or Irish. So important here are Clancy and Flanagan because they're exclusively Irish and they appear among T. McGowan's closest Y-DNA matches. So to summarize so far, what we know is that T. McGowan's closest recurring surname matches are to Irish Clancy and Flanagan, and that T. McGowan has a Y-DNA match to another McGowan who tested independently. So therefore, you have the McGowan, the Clancy and Flanagan surnames arising among related Irish males in an area associated with the RM22 mutation within Ireland. And since Irish farmers still concentrate in the area where their surnames first appeared, we have to ask ourselves, is there a question where we find McGowans, Clancys and Flanagans farming side by side within Ireland? And the answer is yes. If I plot where farmers with each of those surnames appear in early census data, it leads back to this area here, North Leitrim. That's the area where you find McGowans, Clancys and Flanagans farming side by side in an area of Ireland associated with the RM22 marker. Now, if we look at the Irish Origins Medieval Surnames of Ireland map, this map is free to explore at originsmaps.com, you'll see McGowan, black arrow, and literally surrounded by the surnames Clancy, Flanagan and Mullen that appear among the test subjects T. McGowan's closest recurring Y-DNA surname matches. Now, if you look at the Irish clan territories of Ireland map, you'll see that the McGowans, denoted by the black arrow here, are literally inhabiting the lands of the Clancys who rule this area. Now, the clan map that I produced a number of years ago, that is based or reconstructed based on the location of castles and their historically associated clans or families. And in my research, what I typically find is that you will match, or your ancestors will have lived in an area, and one of those surrounding clans who dominates that area will feature prominently in your DNA results. In this instance, the Clancys dominate, the Clancy genetic relatives dominate that area. And actually just to the east, you see the McGuires, and the McGuires appear as a more distant recurring surname match. And you can see them highlighted with that yellow arrow there. Now, if we look at the Irish Origins Gaelic surnames of Ireland map, you'll see that you see McGowan, which is the original Gaelic version of the surname. And if we look at the Irish Origins What's in a Name map, so this is literally the translation, English translation of those Gaelic or of those original Gaelic surnames, you'll see that McGowan literally translates as son of the metal worker. So T. McGowan's Irish paternal ancestral genetic homeland is to be found in the farmland of North Leitrim, near the village of Kinloch, and it's there that his direct male ancestor lived approximately 1,000 years ago when surnames became common in Ireland. And in the surrounding area, you find two castles associated with his Clancy genetic relatives. But if you examine the surrounding townlands and place names, you find Castle Gowan, literally Gowan's Castle. And that's there. So you can see Castle Gowan, which is literally just in neighbouring North Sligo. So what are townlands? Well, townlands are Ireland's smallest geographical unit of land division. The entire island is divided into approximately 64,000 different townlands, many of which predate the Norman invasion of Ireland in 1169 AD, and many are named after the clans or families that lived there. So this is Castlegowan townland. It's approximately a kilometre squared, and this image is taken from the heritagedata.maps.arcgis.com website. You can go on, you can explore the various maps on that website, and I highly recommend it. And if you look in this instance, well, we can actually see quite a bit is recorded within that townland. So you can just about see the outline of, I've zoomed in on this townland. This is a different map set database. And if you look, you can see all the archaeological evidence that's been detected in this townland. It's pretty remarkable. And basically Castlegowan has all the evidence of human occupation. The castle in this instance is actually a ring fort, which is termed cashel in Gaelic. So if we go to Google Earth View, which is quite nice, you can see I've outlined Castlegowan townland with this white border, and I've located the position of the original ring fort, the cashel, what appear to be burials, and a souterrain. So if we zoom in, this area here, this is the actual castle or rath, cashel, and this is what it would have originally looked like. And you can see it's retained its features remarkably well, given it's maybe over 1,000, maybe 1,500 years old. Now, from the roadside, no, you can't really. This is the structure here. It's not particularly clear, but you get an idea of the structure. So if we zoom in on the souterrain, which is, I think it's somewhere in here. And what is a souterrain? We're not. Basically, it's a sort of stone-lined passageway. What it was used for, maybe food storage, shelter. We don't really know. But in Ireland, these souterrains are often found inside or in close proximity to ring forts. And again, if we just go roadside view, don't know whether that there is the actual entrance to this stone-lined souterrain. But this is probably the most interesting part of that townland, is the mounds and the cairns, which are probably burials, and you can actually see them here. So this is the map, and it shows you all the locations of these mounds, cairns, stone rows. This is them here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Another one down here maybe. So this is really interesting, and well, I'll tell you why, because I'll summarize in the next slide. So in summary, Gallowglass, or Cashel-Gowan, or Rathgowan, has all the evidence of human occupation. This is where the McGowans of North Leitrim originated, basically within this townland. This is the McGowan's Rath. This is McGowan's souterrain. This is McGowan's burials. And because they're McGowan burials, well, if they ever sampled the DNA remains from these burials, I'd expect T. McGowan to be a Y-DNA match to any male remains that are found in this location. That's pretty remarkable. So in my previous talk, I described how I made a Y-DNA SNP map of Ireland and Scotland. And a SNP is a very specific mutation. Now, so this is the haplogroup tree for RM222. And the question is, where does T. McGowan sit on this SNP map? So basically, each of these little blocks is a very specific mutation, which I can link to a very specific location within either Scotland or Ireland. So for example, this is Brendan McGowan, who featured in that talk. He carries a SNP which can be localized to northwest Ireland. And so with the limited data we have on T. McGowan, is it possible to put T. McGowan, his McGowans, on this SNP map? And the answer is yes. So let's go back and take a look at T. McGowan's DNA results. So how do I find his SNP, basically, his SNP data? Well, T. McGowan has 594 genetic relatives, all of whom have a haplogroup, and that haplogroup is there listed in that column. Now I can analyze that data and determine his branch on that haplogroup tree. So when I analyze those 594 haplogroups, this is what I get. So the ones in purple, these ones here, these are very old. So this RM173 is 20,000 years old. But this RM269, this is your typical Indo-European marker. And downstream of that marker is the RM222 mutation, which is listed by 62 of his 594 matches. And that mutation appears in 150 BC. Now the RM222 first appears in Scotland and is taken into Ireland. And if we examine the mutations that are recorded by T. McGowan's genetic relatives, well, the ones in green are specific mutations downstream of RM222 that appear afterwards or later. And they're a particular branch, these four highlighted in green, are a particular branch of RM222. And this is that branch here. And this is how I can gauge T. McGowan's SNP branch on the RM222 haplogroup tree from his Y-DNA 37 marker results. So we are trying to determine T. McGowan's branch on this RM22 haplogroup tree. So this is the specific mutations downstream his branch that we've identified from his STR results. And that branch is highlighted in this red line, which runs from here, RM222. This is his branch, reaching down to here. And just in red, I've highlighted each of those markers, those mutations. And just to recap, this is Brendan's branch down here in the left, the lower left. And if we zoom in on this area here, now we know that T. McGowan's branch is North Leitrim. And what you can see is he sits right between mutations that branch off to Fermanagh and Donegal. So his little SNP is going to sit in here in North Leitrim. And if you look at the counties of Ireland, you see this is the area. So there's Donegal and Fermanagh, and we literally have him sitting in right there at the borderlands of Leitrim, Fermanagh, and Donegal. This is where his branch will be. So pretty remarkable. We can literally, without him having SNP testing, we can identify where he will sit, or where he sits. T. McGowan sit on this RM222 haplogroup tree. So to summarize, I can pinpoint the origin to in a single townland from Y-DNA 37 results. So that's, as I say, that's the basic that you need to do for a Y-DNA test, is the Y-DNA 37, and we can get down to a very specific location. And I can also place T. McGowan's position on that Y-DNA SNP map of Ireland. So even though he's not SNP tested, I can determine where his branch is. And of course, we can determine when and where his paternal ancestors arrived in Ireland. So basically, they were Gaels from southwest Scotland who arrived in Ireland in the 2nd century AD, and at some point prior to the appearance of surnames, they're in Castlegowan, Rathgowan, in northeast Sligo, close to where the McGowan's cluster in North Leitrim. So, and what's remarkable now, this is really remarkable, is that Castlegowan, this little nondescript townland in Ireland, is now a tourist destination for all the descendants worldwide of the McGowans of North Leitrim. And there's probably maybe tens of thousands of them worldwide. So Irish Origins now has the pinpointed origins and genetic signature for 2 of the 6 RM222 McGowan clans. That's pretty remarkable. So in time, we hope to have the Y-DNA signature of the remaining McGowan clans. So for example, the McGowans of southwest Scotland, the McGowans of West Donegal, the McGowans of the Donegal and Tyrone borderlands, and the McGowans of Mayo. So they're what remains of the M22 McGowans. And then of course there were all the Smiths, Cowans, McCowans that are also found throughout Ireland and Scotland. So the goal at Irish and Scottish Origins is to identify the genetic signature of all the Irish and Scottish clans and families. And if you want to give this a go yourself, you want to try it yourself, all the Irish Origins and Scottish Origins maps are free to browse online, as are all the Y-DNA haplogroup trees. You simply go to originsmaps.com, you select a map to view, and then you literally place the cursor over the area of interest. So it just remains for me to thank you for watching, and I've got to ask the question, where will your DNA take you? Where will it lead to? What specific location in Ireland will become your tourist destination? So you can email me at tyronebowes@gmail.com for a free consultation, and I hope you've enjoyed.